The stars were quiet that night. The command deck of the Vereen Dominion's listening post floated in orbit above the silent blue planet of Thalos 4. Most days, nothing interesting ever happened there. The crew followed their shifts, monitored the deep space sensors, and occasionally complained about how cold the outpost always felt. It was supposed to be one of the safest places in the entire quadrant. Far from the wars, far from the politics, far from danger. But safety, like silence, can be an illusion. Cale Torin, the senior sensor officer, was finishing his routine system check when one of his screens blinked. It was just a flicker at first, a small change in the background radiation. He frowned and tapped the panel again. The reading stabilized for a moment, then spiked sharply. The signal wasn't natural. It had a rhythm, precise, pulsing, and deliberate. His fingers hovered above the console. A code signal, maybe, but from where? He opened a secure channel to Central Command. Control, this is Listening Post Thalos. I have a possible unidentified drive signature in Sector 942, signal strength increasing. There was static for a moment before the reply came. Copy that, Thalos. Could be a cargo run or a stray beacon. Keep monitoring. Cale leaned back, uneasy. He'd seen cargo runs, mining convoys, even stealth frigates pass through these sectors. None of them looked like this. This signal had weight, as if space itself was bending around it. A few of his colleagues gathered behind him, staring at the repeating pattern on the screen. One of them muttered, "That can't be right." The energy curve, look at that, then it happened. The entire control room went red. Sirens blared. The central AI lit up every console with a single flashing alert code. Crimson alert. The room froze. Every officer stopped what they were doing. The words alone were enough to drain the color from their faces. Crimson alert wasn't just another warning. It was a code buried deep in Dominion history, an ancient emergency signal that had not been used in almost 3 centuries. It meant only one thing: human origin detected. For a moment, no one spoke. Even the hum of the ship seemed to fade away. Cale's voice broke the silence, soft but trembling. That can't be right. Humans are gone. They've been gone for hundreds of years. The commander of the post, a tall and calm figure named Varen, walked slowly to the main console. "Run it again," he said. "Check every frequency." Kyle did. The system verified the signature. It matched old Earth-based propulsion data, a technology that had not been seen since the Terran fleets disappeared beyond the rim. No one alive had ever seen a real human ship, yet every child in the Dominion had heard stories about them. Stories told to frighten or inspire, depending on who you asked. The commander exhaled slowly. "Transmit to command. Level 9 priority. We have confirmation of a human drive signature." The message left the outpost within seconds, racing through encrypted relays toward the Dominion Central Fleet network. News traveled fast. Within hours, every strategic command post across 3 star systems was on alert. Fleets were mobilized. Dreadnoughts powered up their cores for the first time in decades. The word human alone was enough to shake even the most hardened generals. The last time humanity appeared in the galaxy, entire empires had fallen. It was said that no one ever truly won a war against them, only survived long enough to retreat. While the fleets prepared, Kyle remained at his post, staring at the data. The signal was growing stronger. Whatever was coming was getting closer, fast. He didn't know if he should be afraid or amazed. The reading suggested something massive, far larger than any modern vessel. Yet its energy output was strangely calm, almost silent, as if the ship didn't need to burn power to move. It was like watching a ghost drift through space. The command network buzzed with speculation. Some claimed it was an ancient probe returning home. Others said it might be a weapon left behind by old wars. A few even whispered that humans had finally decided to come back, and that they would not come peacefully. When the transmission from Central arrived, the commander read it out loud. "All fleets are to hold formation and avoid engagement. Observe only. Do not provoke contact. Maintain crimson alert until further notice." The crew tried to stay professional, but the fear was hard to hide. They all knew what the old records said about humans, the only species ever to challenge the united armadas of the galaxy and walk away undefeated. The only species to create ships so powerful that even after 3 centuries, no one had managed to replicate them, and yet humans had vanished. No colonies, no signals, nothing. It was as if they had gone into hibernation and erased their own footprints from the stars. Kyle couldn't stop thinking about that. Why would they return now? What did they want? He leaned closer to his console, adjusting the feed from the deep-range scanner. A faint image appeared. At first it looked like a cluster of asteroids. Then the shape began to form, a massive silhouette, sleek and dark, gliding silently through the void. Its hull reflected no light, absorbing everything around it. But as it turned slightly, a faint marking became visible, letters etched into the metal. Cale zoomed in and his breath caught. The old Earth alphabet. The letters spelled something faded but recognizable. UN's Valkyrie. The control room went silent again. The commander closed his eyes, whispering almost to himself. It's real. He gave the order immediately. Send the image to command. Mark it classified. No external broadcast. But it was already too late. Across the Dominion network, encrypted data was spreading. Images of the human ship leaked, traveling through military lines and civilian channels alike. People began to talk. On planets light years away, old legends were being retold. Markets slowed, governments held emergency sessions, and defense ministries began recalling every ship they had. The galaxy was holding its breath. Meanwhile, on Thalos Station, Cale watched the Valkyrie grow larger on his screen. It was moving directly toward the Dominion observation perimeter. No radio contact, no response to pings or scans. Just that slow, unstoppable approach. The ship wasn't even trying to hide. It didn't need to. It was as if it knew no one could stop it. The commander ordered the communication officer to open a channel. Unknown vessel, this is Varine Dominion Command. Identify yourself and state your purpose. Silence. Then, after a long pause, a faint signal came through. So faint they almost missed it. The translator worked hard to decode it. The voice that emerged was calm, steady, unmistakably human. This is Commander Ward of the United Terran Navy. Your presence near Terran-claimed space is unauthorized. Withdraw immediately. Every officer froze. They hadn't heard that language spoken by a living being in generations. Yet it sounded so clear, so confident, that even the AI hesitated to process it. The commander tried to respond, but the line cut off. The signal vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Cale felt a chill run down his spine. He knew exactly where we were, he said quietly. More than that, replied the commander. He knew we'd be listening. Outside, space shimmered. The Valkyrie slowed to a halt, its massive frame blotting out the stars behind it. No weapon ports were visible, no threat signals. Yet every Dominion ship in range locked onto it automatically. Fear spread faster than orders. Several younger officers whispered about ancient stories, how humans once ended wars in a single battle, how their ships could erase fleets without firing a shot. The commander silenced the room. We do not provoke them. We hold position. If humanity has returned, we will see what they want. No one argued. Hours passed like centuries. The human ship remained motionless, a silent giant against the void. Every sensor pointed at it, every weapon armed but trembling. Kyle barely blinked as he watched, unable to look away. Then something strange happened. The space around the Valkyrie rippled. A faint red light spread from its hull, washing across the void like a heartbeat. For a split second, all Dominion systems flickered, then stabilized again. The scanner showed no damage, but everyone felt it like a whisper brushing the edge of their minds. What was that? Kyle asked. Something we don't understand, the commander said softly. And that should terrify us. In the distance, the stars continued to burn, unaware of what had just awakened among them. The message was clear even without words. Humanity was no myth. They were real. They were watching. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy remembered what fear truly felt like. As the night stretched on, the Valkyrie remained still, waiting, observing, perhaps judging. The Dominion fleet, once proud and mighty, found itself holding its breath, unsure if the next moment would bring peace or annihilation. Cale looked once more at the human ship, and a single thought echoed in his mind. They're not just coming. They've already arrived. And deep inside every heart across the stars, one phrase began to whisper again. An ancient warning carried through generations. Crimson alert. Humanity has returned. Stand ready. The news spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, every military outpost, every trading hub, every political station was buzzing with one headline. A human warship had been seen near Dominion space. No one knew how to react. Some called it a lie, a hoax meant to spark fear. Others said it was impossible, that humanity was long gone, erased from history by time itself. But deep down, in the hearts of soldiers and leaders alike, there was a quiet unease that no one could ignore. Inside the Dominion capital, the Grand Council met in secret. It was the first emergency meeting held in almost 50 years. The council chamber was filled with tension. Holographic screens displayed the blurred image of the massive ship, the UNS Valkyrie. Its dark shape floated silently in the middle of the projection like a ghost watching them. One of the council members leaned forward and whispered, "That ship shouldn't exist. The Terrans destroyed their fleets before they vanished. There are no records left of such designs." Another replied, "And yet there it is, sitting on our borders." Voices rose across the table, some demanding war preparation, others begging for diplomacy. "What if they've come for revenge?" Someone asked. "What if they remember what we did?" The room fell silent, because everyone did remember, even if no one spoke of it. Centuries ago, before humans disappeared, there had been a war, the kind of war that changes everything. Back then, the Dominion wasn't as powerful as it was now. Dozens of alien nations had formed a coalition to control the outer colonies, expanding into human territories. They underestimated humanity. The records said the humans were fragile, emotional, and too divided to stand together. But they were wrong. When the Terrans fought back, they didn't just fight with ships or weapons, they fought with will. They fought like a species that had nothing left to lose. The legend said that in one battle alone, humans destroyed 7 fleets. No one knows how. Their technology was unpredictable, their strategies chaotic. But their spirit? That was what everyone feared. They never gave up, even when surrounded, even when outnumbered. And when it was all over, humanity simply vanished. Some believed they fled to another galaxy. Others said they built something so advanced that the rest of the galaxy could no longer see them. But now the old ghosts had returned and the universe didn't know what to do. While the council argued, out in the distant sectors, fleets were being positioned in silence. Thousands of ships aligned across the outer defense line, ready for the worst. The Dominion Navy was powerful, but deep down none of them felt confident. Against any other enemy, yes, but against humans. The story said that the moment you thought you understood them was the moment you lost. At Thalos Station, Kyle and his commander were still watching the Valkyrie from afar. The ship hadn't moved in hours. It just hung there, silent, as if studying them. The red light from the earlier pulse had faded, but everyone could still feel its presence like a heavy weight pressing on their chest. Kale had barely slept. Every few minutes he checked the readings again, hoping for some kind of explanation, something logical. But there was nothing. No signs of aggression, no communication, no attempt to leave. Just a stillness that felt more threatening than any weapon. Finally, he turned to his commander. "Why aren't they doing anything? If they came to fight, they'd attack. If they came to talk, they'd contact us again." The commander stared at the screen for a long moment before answering quietly. "Maybe they don't need to do either. Maybe they're waiting to see what we do." Those words stayed in Kale's mind. Waiting, watching, testing. Days passed. The Dominion fleet surrounding the area grew to hundreds of ships. Everywhere, engines burned, weapons hummed, and nervous soldiers prepared for what might come next. And still, the human warship didn't move. It was as if it existed outside of time, untouchable and patient. The galaxy had seen powerful ships before, but this one felt different, ancient yet alive. Back on the capital world, the Dominion Intelligence Department intercepted strange chatter. Traders and miners near the outer rim were reporting flickers in deep space, more unidentified signals. Some claimed to have seen shadows moving faster than light. Others spoke of distorted messages repeating the same words. Human origin confirmed. Crimson Protocol active. Each new report only made the panic worse. Civilian colonies began evacuating. Border worlds went silent. The fear was spreading faster than the truth. Amid all this chaos, Kale sat quietly in the control deck, staring at the stars. He couldn't help but wonder what the humans thought of them. Did they see the Dominion as enemies? As intruders? Or maybe just as children who had forgotten their place? The more he thought, the more uneasy he felt. He turned to one of his colleagues and said softly, "You know, We used to tell stories about them when I was young. My grandfather said humans built cities in the sky and walked on fire without fear. I used to laugh at him, but now I think maybe he wasn't telling stories at all. His colleague didn't reply. No one really knew what to say anymore. Just before dawn, as the station rotated toward the distant star, something changed. A soft tone echoed across the control deck. The scanners lit up again. The Valkyrie was moving. Slowly, gracefully, the enormous ship began to turn. The whole command crew rushed to their consoles, hearts pounding. "Is it leaving?" one of them asked. Cale shook his head. "No, it's repositioning." The human ship stopped again, facing directly toward the Dominion's observation line. Then, for the first time since its arrival, its hull lights flickered to life. Not bright or hostile, but soft, almost like a signal. The commander stood, voice calm but tight. "Record everything. No sudden movements." Everyone watched as the lights began to form a pattern. 3 short pulses, 2 long ones, then 3 short again. The translation AI processed the sequence, then displayed the result. "Stand ready." A cold silence filled the room. The humans had spoken again, but not in words this time. It was a message, clear, deliberate, and terrifying in its simplicity. Cale whispered, "What are they getting ready for?" No one had an answer. Moments later, another transmission hit every Dominion communication channel simultaneously. It wasn't a threat, not a warning. Just a signal burst repeating a single phrase across thousands of systems. "We are observing. Do not cross the line." The meaning was clear. The humans had drawn a boundary, one invisible yet absolute. The Dominion High Command immediately issued a restriction order. No ships were allowed to enter the human-marked zone. But as always, there were those who wanted to test the limits. A private military cruiser, belonging to a wealthy warlord from the outer colonies, ignored the order. He claimed the human ship was abandoned, a relic worth millions. He led his crew toward the Valkyrie, confident in his armor and arrogance. Thalos Station watched helplessly as the cruiser approached. Kyle warned them repeatedly, sending messages begging them to turn back. They didn't listen. The Valkyrie did not move, not even when the cruiser entered its sensor range. The smaller ship got closer and closer until it was practically touching the dreadnought's outer field. And then, without sound or explosion, it simply disappeared. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. No wreckage, no energy trail, nothing. Just empty space. Everyone on the station stared at their screens in disbelief. The commander slowly whispered, "They erased it." Like it was never there. Cale felt his mouth go dry. They didn't even fire. That single moment changed everything. The Dominion realized they were facing something far beyond their understanding. You couldn't fight what you couldn't even see move. The Council declared a full communication blackout and restricted all civilian transmissions. But even that couldn't stop the spreading fear. Across the galaxy, the message was clear. The humans had returned, and they still controlled power no one else could match. Back on Thalos, Cale looked at the red glow still pulsing faintly from the human ship. He thought about the missing cruiser, the silence, the calm voice that had spoken earlier. Maybe this wasn't about war. Maybe this was about warning. The humans didn't destroy fleets for fun, they never did. They acted when provoked. And maybe, just maybe, they were giving the galaxy one last chance to stay out of their path. As the Valkyrie continued to hover in the darkness, its presence felt less like a threat and more like a judgment. Every Dominion officer on Thalos knew that one wrong move could decide the fate of entire worlds. Cale stayed by the viewing window long after his shift ended. He couldn't sleep. The stars outside looked smaller now, almost fragile compared to the giant shadow drifting among them. He whispered to himself, "They left once. Maybe they gave us peace, and now they've come to see what we did with it." The thought lingered. Maybe the humans weren't angry. Maybe they were disappointed. As the red alert lights dimmed across the station, one final message came through the data feed, encrypted, untranslated, ancient in format. Only a few words were clear enough to read. "This is only the beginning." Cale stared at the message for a long time, feeling the weight of every word. Deep inside, he knew the galaxy had changed forever. The myths were no longer myths. Humanity was back, and whatever they were planning, it had already begun. The night after the disappearance of the Dominion cruiser, silence hung over Thalos Station like a heavy fog. No one dared to speak too loudly, as if sound itself might wake something sleeping beyond the stars. The image of that ship vanishing without a trace kept replaying in everyone's mind. It wasn't just fear anymore, it was realization. Whatever the humans had become, they were far beyond the galaxy's understanding. Cale hadn't slept in 2 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that faint red light flashing on his scanner. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the data feed again and again, searching for anything that made sense. The readings were calm, no energy spikes, no motion, no signs of hostility. The Valkyrie just floated in space, enormous and silent, its black hull catching distant starlight like an endless shadow. The commander entered the deck quietly, looking as tired as everyone else. "Any changes?" Cale shook his head. "Nothing yet. It's been steady for 16 hours. "Good," the commander said softly. "Let's hope it stays that way." But it didn't. Just past the second rotation, every sensor in the region suddenly spiked. Alarms blared through the deck, making hearts jump. The scanners picked up something, small, fast, and unknown, emerging from behind the human dreadnought. The crew rushed to their stations, trying to lock onto it, but the readings flickered in and out like static. Cale's eyes widened. "It's another ship. Smaller one." The commander leaned closer to the monitor. "Can you identify it?" "Negative. It's cloaked, or something like cloaking. I can't get a visual." For a few tense minutes, the blips danced across the radar before vanishing entirely. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the Valkyrie's hull shimmered faintly. The smaller object had docked with it. The commander whispered, "They're not alone." That realization sent chills through the entire room. If one human warship existed, there could be more. Maybe dozens, maybe hundreds, all hidden in the blackness. The Dominion fleet surrounding the sector tightened their formations, keeping weapons locked but fingers off the triggers. Nobody wanted to start the war that might end everything. Hours turned into days. The human ship remained unmoving. But now the Dominion began to pick up faint transmissions, short bursts of code too complex for even their best decryption programs. Every time the AI tried to decode them, it crashed. The messages were old, layered in encryption styles that hadn't been used since before the Dominion was founded. Cale felt a strange mixture of fear and fascination. The humans weren't just returning with ships. They were returning with knowledge that seemed to bend the laws of physics. He often found himself staring at the ship through the observation window, thinking about the kind of people who might be inside it. Were they like the humans from the old history records, emotional, unpredictable, passionate? Or had centuries changed them into something else entirely? During one long night shift, Cale stayed alone in the observation deck. The stars outside shimmered quietly. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "What do you want from us?" His voice echoed faintly in the empty room. To his shock, the communication console flickered. A faint static filled the air. Then through the distortion came a quiet human voice. "Observation received." Cale froze. He didn't move or breathe. The voice wasn't threatening. It was calm, neutral, almost gentle. Then the signal cut off. He stared at the dark screen for several seconds, heart pounding. They were listening. When he reported it to the commander, the man stared at him for a long moment. "Are you sure you heard it?" Cale nodded. "Every word." The commander sighed, rubbing his temples. "Then they're not just observing. They're testing us." By now, the entire Dominion fleet had gathered around the region, more than 3,000 ships forming a vast sphere of defense around the Valkyrie. It was the largest assembly of warships in 2 centuries, but for all their power, not one dared to fire a single shot. The Dominion High Command sent countless messages demanding communication, peace talks, and explanations. None were answered. The humans remained silent. On the 3rd week of the standoff, something finally changed. The Valkyrie began to move again. Slowly, the massive dreadnought rotated, aligning itself toward the Dominion fleet. Every ship captain across the formation went still. The tension was unbearable. The commander of Thalos Station ordered all weapon systems to stand by. The next few seconds could decide the fate of the galaxy. Then a low-frequency sound rolled through space, deep and steady, like a heartbeat. The signal repeated 3 times, then stopped. It wasn't an attack. It was a message. Across all Dominion frequencies, the translation AI processed it and displayed a single phrase. "Visual contact required." The commander frowned. "Visual contact? With what?" Cale turned toward the main display. "I think They want us to see them. Moments later, the Valkyrie's dark hull began to shift. Panels along its surface moved silently, unfolding like layers of metal petals. A massive window or viewing deck opened along its front side, revealing a faint glow within. The inside light spilled out into the darkness, and for the first time in centuries, the galaxy saw the faces of humans again. They weren't monsters. They weren't gods. They looked human, calm, composed, their eyes sharp but not cruel. Their uniforms were unfamiliar, but carried the old Terran insignia, the symbol of a blue planet surrounded by a circle of stars. The central figure stood near the glass, hands clasped behind his back, watching the Dominion fleet as if studying it. He didn't need to speak. His presence alone spoke volumes. Kale's throat went dry. "That's them," he whispered. "Real humans." The commander activated the transmission system immediately. "This is Vereen Dominion Command. Identify your purpose in our space." For several seconds there was no response. Then the human raised his hand slightly. The next instant, every Dominion channel lit up with a live feed, his voice now echoing through every ship and station in the region. "This is Commander Ward of the United Terran Navy," he said, calm but firm. "Your presence violates the neutral perimeter of Terran space. You will stand down your weapons and withdraw your fleets immediately." The words hit like thunder. Every officer on Thalos Station froze. No one had ever heard a human voice command that kind of authority before. It wasn't loud or aggressive, but it carried weight. A confidence that came from knowing exactly who he was and what power he commanded. The Dominion Fleet Commander, orbiting near the edge of the human zone, tried to respond. "This is a misunderstanding. We are here to investigate a possible anomaly. We mean no harm." The human commander tilted his head slightly. "Your investigation fired upon a Terran vessel 3 days ago. That vessel no longer exists. Consider that your only warning." The air in every control room grew colder. No one spoke. The Dominion commander opened his mouth again, but before he could reply, all communications cut off. The Valkyrie's window darkened and the ship's hull sealed itself again. The silence that followed felt endless. Kale turned to his commander. "They knew about the cruiser. They were watching the whole time." "Yes," the commander replied quietly, "and they let us see them on purpose." The fleet held its position, waiting for further orders. But deep inside, most officers already knew the truth. This wasn't a standoff anymore. It was a lesson. Humanity had returned not to wage war, but to remind the galaxy of what it once feared most: accountability. The next morning, the Dominion High Council tried to regain control of the situation. They ordered diplomatic channels opened, envoys prepared, treaties rewritten. But how do you negotiate with a force that doesn't ask for anything? On Thalos Station, Kale looked at the empty screen where the human faces had appeared hours before. There was something haunting about their calm expressions. They hadn't looked angry. They hadn't looked proud either. They looked disappointed, as if they had expected more from the galaxy and found only arrogance and greed. He thought back to the words that had appeared in the first message: "Stand ready." Now he understood. The humans hadn't said it as a threat, they said it as a warning. They were preparing the galaxy for something bigger. That night, while most of the crew rested, Kale stayed alone again by the viewport. The Valkyrie floated in the distance, its lights dim but steady. He imagined the people inside, walking calmly through corridors filled with quiet confidence. Maybe they were studying them. Maybe they were deciding who among the stars still remembered respect. Suddenly, the ship emitted another pulse of light. This time it wasn't red. It was white, soft, almost peaceful. A moment later, every Dominion ship received a short encrypted message. "Your actions are being recorded. Maintain peace." Kyle felt something strange stir in his chest. Not fear, but a sense of humility. The humans weren't trying to conquer anyone. They were watching, guiding, reminding the galaxy that power didn't make you untouchable. It made you responsible. The commander walked in quietly beside him. "Do you think they'll leave?" Kale didn't answer right away. He watched the glowing ship for a long time. Maybe, but if they do, it won't be because they're afraid. It'll be because they've seen what they needed to see. Outside, the stars shined like cold sparks in the endless dark, and the human dreadnought drifted among them, silent, patient, unshaken. For the first time in generations, The galaxy realized the truth it had long forgotten. Humanity was not extinct. They had simply stepped back, waiting for the day when the universe. The silence after the Crimson Alert was unbearable. Every communication channel was flooded with confusion and fear. Officers shouted reports trying to make sense of what they were seeing, but no one truly understood it. The human ship, the one that appeared from nowhere, just floated there in the void. Massive, ancient, and completely still. It didn't fire, didn't move aggressively, yet everyone watching it could feel one thing very clearly. Power. A kind of power that made even the strongest fleets feel small. The command bridge was filled with a strange tension. Even the hum of machinery seemed quieter than usual. The commander of the Dominion fleet stood frozen in front of the main screen, his eyes fixed on the human vessel. He had led battles before, crushed rebellions, and defeated pirate fleets. But this was different. This was something he didn't understand. He whispered to himself, "How can a ship this old still exist?" A young communication officer interrupted his thoughts. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the human ship." The commander turned slowly. "Put it through." The static on the speakers cleared and a voice filled the air, steady, calm, and unmistakably human. "This is Commander Ward of the United Terran Navy," the voice said, its tone neither angry nor fearful, just firm. "Your blockade violates Article 7 of the Sol Accords. Stand down immediately or be removed." The bridge went silent. Every officer, every soldier froze. No one had ever heard a human voice before. The galaxy had only stories about them, tales of a vanished species that once ruled with unmatched courage and intelligence. For centuries, many believed humans were gone forever, wiped out or lost beyond the stars. And yet, here was a voice from the past speaking as if no time had passed at all. The commander tried to respond, but his throat was dry. Finally, he managed to speak. "This is Dominion Command. Identify your purpose in restricted space." But there was no reply, only the hum of distant energy readings coming from the Valkyrie. "Sir," one of the officers whispered nervously, "what should we do? Their ship isn't responding, and our scanners can't read their energy core. It's like they're cloaked in something." The commander hesitated. Fear crept into his thoughts. If this was truly a human warship, engaging could be suicide. But if he didn't act, his superiors would accuse him of weakness. He took a deep breath. "Hold formation," he said. "No one fires without my direct order." Outside, the Valkyrie began to move slowly, its engines glowing a deep, soft blue. The light didn't look like any known propulsion. It was smooth, quiet, too controlled. Every sensor on every Dominion ship tried to track it, but the readings made no sense. The vessel appeared to exist in two places at once, flickering like a reflection on water. "Sir, they're scanning us," someone shouted. "Shut down all targeting systems," the commander ordered quickly. "Don't give them a reason to attack," but it was already too late. The Dominion ships had locked onto the Valkyrie the moment it appeared. The human AI detected it instantly. A single beam of golden light flashed from the human ship, not as a weapon but as a warning. Every targeting system across the Dominion fleet shut down in the same second. Screens went dark, weapons froze. Power readings dropped to 0. Gasps filled the control rooms across the entire formation. It was as if the human ship had reached into their systems and switched everything off without effort. Then the human voice returned. "Your aggression has been noted," it said calmly. "You are advised to disengage immediately." There was no anger in the tone, only authority. It wasn't a threat, it was a statement of fact. The commander clenched his fists. How did they do that?" he whispered. "They didn't even fire a shot." No one answered. Everyone knew the truth. They were completely outmatched. The stories had said humans were masters of both war and peace, a species that built and destroyed with equal skill. Now facing the Valkyrie, those old legends felt very real. One of the younger officers couldn't take the pressure anymore. "We can't just sit here," he shouted. "We have to respond." The commander glared at him. "You will do nothing. Don't you see? They want us to make the first move." Outside, the Valkyrie stopped again. Its weapons were still silent, but its presence alone was overwhelming. The Dominion ships floated around it like helpless satellites. Every soldier on board felt the same sensation in their chest, like they were standing before something ancient and unstoppable. Moments later, the human ship released a soft pulse of light. It wasn't an attack. It was a scan, but it swept through every vessel in the area, collecting data with surgical precision. Within seconds, the Valkyrie knew everything: fleet numbers, shield frequencies, engine types, and even crew counts. The commander realized then what the humans were doing. They weren't preparing for war. They were assessing the threat level, and the Dominion, barely registered as one. Suddenly the lights flickered on the bridge again. A new message appeared on every screen. "You are not our enemy. Do not force us to act." The message disappeared as quickly as it came. No further communication followed. The Valkyrie simply turned slightly, its hull gleaming like silver under a distant sun, and began moving toward the edge of the system. "Are they leaving?" an officer asked softly. "I think so," the commander replied. They just wanted to be seen, but deep down he knew better. This wasn't just about being seen. The humans had sent a warning, a reminder that they still existed and that the galaxy was being watched. As the massive ship faded into the darkness, a quiet sense of awe filled the Dominion ranks. Fear turned into curiosity, and curiosity turned into respect. For centuries, their leaders had called humans primitive, violent, and extinct, but the truth was the opposite. The humans were far beyond them, technologically, strategically, and perhaps even morally. Later, when reports reached the Central Council, chaos erupted. Many refused to believe it. Others demanded proof. But those who had seen the Valkyrie knew the truth. They had witnessed something extraordinary. In the following weeks, whispers spread through military stations and trade routes alike. Pilots told stories of a ghost ship appearing on scanners only to vanish moments later. Traders swore they saw faint blue trails in deep space leading nowhere. Everyone who heard the story began to repeat a single phrase: "Crimson alert means they're watching." And though no one admitted it openly, every fleet commander quietly added a new rule to their training manuals: if a human warship appears, stand down and pray they let you live. The Dominion's propaganda later tried to rewrite the event, calling it an unknown anomaly. But those who had been there couldn't forget. The memory of that calm human voice still echoed in their minds, stronger than any lie. That day, history changed again. The humans had revealed themselves not as conquerors, but as watchers. They didn't come to destroy, they came to remind the galaxy of a truth everyone had tried to forget: that humanity never really disappeared. They simply waited, and now they were awake once more. The fleet hung in silence. The air inside every Dominion ship felt heavier than before. Officers stared at their dead screens, waiting for power to return. The great human warship, the Valkyrie, floated between them like a giant shadow from another age. No one dared to speak. No one dared to move. It felt as if the whole galaxy had stopped breathing. Inside the command bridge, the Dominion commander stood frozen. His hands trembled slightly as he watched the massive ship glide past their formation. The lights flickered around him. Sparks jumped from consoles, and the sound of failing systems filled the air. Nothing they did could stop it. The human ship hadn't fired even once, yet every Dominion vessel was powerless. It was like standing in front of a god who chose not to strike. "Status report," the commander demanded, his voice low but shaking. One officer replied softly, "Sir, our shields are gone. Weapons are offline. Engines completely dead." The commander's throat went dry. "And communication?" The officer shook his head. "Silence, sir. The Valkyrie's interference is blocking everything." Through the main viewing screen, the Valkyrie moved slowly, almost peacefully. Its hull gleamed faintly under the light of distant stars. It didn't look aggressive, but everyone could feel something in the air. A quiet warning. The kind of warning that didn't need words. For a few moments, the Dominion commander just watched. He thought about the stories he'd grown up hearing, about the humans who vanished centuries ago after their final war. They had been called monsters by some and heroes by others. But one thing was always clear: they had fought for survival like no other species ever could. And now, seeing this warship drifting effortlessly through space, he realized something terrifying. Those stories hadn't been exaggerated. If anything, they had been far too gentle. A young officer on the bridge whispered, "Sir, maybe they're testing us." "Testing?" the commander asked. "Yes, sir. They could have destroyed us already, but they didn't. Maybe they're seeing how we'll respond." The commander didn't answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the human ship, which continued to glide forward. No shots fired, no hostile movement, just silent dominance. Suddenly, a faint vibration passed through the Dominion flagship. The lights flickered again, and a cold voice echoed through the room. Power restoration in progress. Everyone turned toward the sound. It was the ship's internal AI reactivating itself. Systems slowly started coming back online one by one. Screens lit up, radar feeds returned, and communications began to crackle faintly. But before anyone could celebrate, a new sound filled the speakers. A low, calm human voice. "You attacked without provocation." That was unwise. The voice came from the Valkyrie. Every Dominion officer froze in place. The tone wasn't angry. It was controlled, patient, and confident. "We do not wish for war," the voice continued. "But understand this. Your weapons, your fleets, your empires mean nothing to us." Then came silence again. The commander finally found his voice. "Respond, now!" An officer tried to transmit a message, but the signal failed. Every attempt bounced back. The human ship wasn't accepting communication. They were done speaking. Moments later, the Valkyrie released a soft pulse of golden light. It spread outward slowly, like a wave moving through space. As it touched each Dominion ship, the system stabilized. Engines came back online. Life support returned to normal. The ships were operational again, but the meaning was clear. The humans had given them their power back. The commander clenched his fists. The humiliation burned inside him. They had been completely disabled and then spared. Every Dominion officer could feel it too. It wasn't victory they were experiencing, it was mercy. He turned toward his crew and said quietly, "All ships, stand down. Do not pursue." "But sir, we can—" "Do not!" the commander shouted, his voice echoing across the bridge. "They let us live. Don't make them change their mind." Outside, the Valkyrie began to move away, its engines flaring softly. No one followed. The Dominion fleet simply watched in silence as the massive ship slipped into the darkness of deep space. Even after it vanished from radar, no one moved for a long time. The bridge felt hollow, as if something sacred had just passed through. Hours later, when the fleet finally regrouped, a report arrived from the Dominion Intelligence Bureau. It contained fragments of intercepted data from the human ship before it disappeared. Just one line of text, no encryption, no signature. "We are not your enemies, but do not threaten our people again. We are awake now." The message spread like wildfire. Within days, it reached every corner of the Dominion and beyond. Some refused to believe it. Others panicked. But those who had seen the Valkyrie with their own eyes didn't doubt it for a second. Humanity was back. In the following weeks, strange things began to happen across the galaxy. Small colonies reported strange signals appearing briefly in their systems, unreadable frequencies that vanished seconds later. Mining vessels claimed they'd seen lights moving faster than any known drive system. Some said they heard voices in the static, old Earth languages that hadn't been spoken in centuries. Governments tried to cover it up, calling them sensor malfunctions or space anomalies, but the people knew better. Something was happening out there, something far bigger than they understood. The Dominion commander couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the Valkyrie. Not attacking, not destroying, just watching. He kept hearing that calm voice echoing in his head. "We are awake now." He began to wonder, how long had they been watching? Were they always there, hidden in the dark, waiting for the right moment? The thought sent chills through him. If humans had truly returned, it meant the balance of power across the galaxy would change forever. Days turned into weeks, but the memory of that encounter didn't fade. The term Crimson Alert gained a new meaning. It wasn't just a battle code anymore. It became a warning used across space. Whenever ships disappeared or unknown signals appeared, commanders whispered the same phrase. Crimson Alert. It might be them. In time, stories began to spread among traders and soldiers alike. Some said they saw a massive shadow crossing through asteroid fields without engines. Others spoke of old Earth symbols carved into derelict stations. Whether those stories were real or not didn't matter. The fear, the respect, and the mystery surrounding humanity had returned. The Dominion eventually classified the entire event as top secret. They erased all logs, sealed reports, and ordered everyone who was present to remain silent. But silence couldn't erase what had been witnessed. Every person who had looked upon the Valkyrie knew one simple truth. If humans had truly awakened, the galaxy would never be the same again. The commander stood alone at the viewing deck one night. staring into the endless stars. For the first time in years, he felt small, not because of his enemies, not because of defeat, but because he had seen something greater than himself. He whispered softly, "If they're out there, I hope they find peace this time." Somewhere in the distance, a faint shimmer of light flickered across the void. No sound, no signal, just the quiet reminder that the watchers in the dark were still there, watching, waiting. And though no one could see it, deep beyond the edge of known space, the Valkyrie drifted silently among the stars, its crew observing the galaxy below. They had no desire for war. They had only one mission, to make sure no one ever made the same mistake again. For humanity, it wasn't about conquest anymore. It was about balance, about ensuring the chaos that once destroyed worlds would never rise again. And so, the legend of the Crimson Alert lived on, not as a warning of doom, but as a symbol of quiet strength. Because somewhere out there, beyond every star the humans were watching, and every empire, every fleet, every ruler who remembered that truth, stood ready. The galaxy changed quietly after the day the Valkyrie appeared. No big wars, no loud speeches, just a silent shift in how everyone looked at the stars. Across planets, spaceports, and colonies, people whispered the same question. Are the humans really back? No one had an answer, but everyone felt it. The calm before something much bigger. Months passed, yet the Dominion couldn't erase what had happened. Their fleets were repaired, their systems restored, but their pride was not. Every officer who had faced the human ship remembered that moment of helplessness. They remembered how it had shut down hundreds of warships with no effort. Some still dreamed about it at night, the golden light, the calm voice, and the heavy silence that followed. The Dominion High Council tried to hide the truth, calling the event a sensor malfunction caused by solar radiation. But the crews who had seen it laughed bitterly. They knew the truth couldn't be erased. One officer said softly during a private meeting, "You can erase the reports, but you can't erase fear." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, strange signals began to appear. They were faint, short, and impossible to trace. Sometimes they lasted only seconds, but the pattern was always the same. An ancient human transmission code, one that hadn't been used in centuries. Experts tried to decode it, but no one could. The messages weren't in any known language. In one outer sector, a cargo ship reported being followed by a dark shadow that moved faster than light. The crew panicked, thinking pirates were after them, but when they turned their sensors on it, they found nothing. Only static. Later, when the data was reviewed, the shadow had left behind a faint energy trace, one that matched the Valkyrie. The Dominion commander who had first seen the human ship spent his nights studying the data. He was haunted, but not by fear anymore, by curiosity. He couldn't stop wondering why the humans had come back after all this time. They had the power to destroy, yet they didn't. They had stayed quiet, only giving a warning. It felt like they were waiting for something, or someone. One evening, as he sat in his office staring at the star maps, he received a private communication request. The signal was encrypted in a format so old that even the ship's AI couldn't recognize it. When he accepted the connection, his screen went black for a moment. Then a faint image appeared. It was a human. The figure was calm, dressed in a simple dark uniform with an old Earth insignia. The background was dim, showing what looked like the interior of a massive starship. The human spoke slowly, each word clear and steady. "You have nothing to fear from us. We are not your enemies," the voice said, "but your leaders must stop expanding into forbidden systems. Those borders were set for a reason." The commander swallowed hard. "What reason?" he asked quietly. The figure looked at him with calm eyes. "There are things out there older than both your kind and mine, things that do not sleep." Before the commander could reply, the transmission ended. The screen went dark again, leaving him staring at his own reflection. He felt a strange mix of fear and respect. The humans weren't just protecting themselves, they were protecting everyone. Across the galaxy, more encounters like this began to happen. Merchant fleets reported receiving ghost transmissions. Patrols claimed to see massive ships moving silently in deep space. Some said they saw flashes of light near the edges of black holes, as if something huge was watching from inside. The Dominion tried to chase these sightings, but every time they arrived, there was nothing left. No trace, no signal, just silence. Slowly, a new belief spread among spacefarers. It wasn't spoken in official meetings or written in reports, but everyone knew it. They called it the Crimson Code. It meant that if you ever saw a red alert appear on your ship's screen without reason, you should power down, stay calm, and wait. Because it meant they were near. One day in a quiet mining colony near the edge of known space, something strange happened. The colony's sky suddenly filled with streaks of light, meteor-like trails glowing blue and gold. The miners ran outside, staring in awe. But these weren't meteors. The trails were perfectly controlled, moving in formation, and at the center of them was a shadow, the same triangular silhouette that had haunted the Dominion fleet, the Valkyrie. The colony's old radio tower crackled alive, even though it hadn't worked for years. Then through the static came that same calm human voice. "This is not a threat. Do not be afraid. We are monitoring a disturbance near your system. Evacuate your northern zone immediately." The colony governor hesitated for only a moment before giving the order. Within an hour, every worker and family had been moved away from the northern area, and then just before dawn the sky split open with light. A massive energy burst erupted far beyond the mountains, an unstable wormhole collapsing. If they hadn't evacuated, everyone would have been gone in seconds. When the light faded, the Valkyrie was gone again. No one saw where it went, but the colony survivors knew one thing: the humans had saved them. Word of this spread fast. Across the galaxy, attitudes began to shift. Some still feared humanity, but others began to see them differently, not as destroyers, but as protectors. Old legends were retold with new meaning. Instead of calling humans extinct, people started calling them the Guardians of Sol. The Dominion commander eventually retired from service. But even after he left, he couldn't stop looking at the stars. He had seen something that changed him forever. On his last day, he wrote a personal note in his logbook. "They came in silence, showed their power, and left without blood. They don't seek war, they seek balance. And maybe that's what the galaxy needed all along." Centuries later, that log entry would be found by explorers, stored in the archives of the Dominion's oldest space station. By then, no one had seen a human ship in generations, but whenever a crimson alert flashed across any fleet screen, every soldier still stood still, holding their breath, remembering the old stories, because the humans never vanished completely. They were still out there, hidden, patient, and watching. Some said they lived among the stars, protecting unseen worlds. Others believed they had gone beyond the edge of the galaxy, building something even greater. And sometimes, when a fleet entered a dark, empty sector and felt a strange pulse through their instruments, captains would give the same quiet order: "Stand ready. Don't move." It could be them. No one ever dared to test that warning again. As the centuries rolled on, humanity's legend grew stronger than ever. They had become something more than a species. They had become a force, a presence woven into the heart of the galaxy itself. They were a reminder that peace could exist through power, and that silence could be louder than any weapon. And so, the message that started it all continued to echo through time. On every ship, every planet, and every heart that remembered that fateful day, the words carried a weight that no one dared to forget. "We are not your enemies, but do not threaten our people again. We are awake now." The stars shone brighter that night, as if even the universe itself remembered. And far beyond the edge of known space, the Valkyrie drifted quietly through the dark, its engines whispering like a heartbeat, watching, waiting, protecting. Because once humanity awakens, it never sleeps again.